Hello, and welcome to Whiskey Novice Whiskey Reviews. This is going to be my first whiskey review, and thank you very much for joining me. I am, as I said, the Whiskey Novice, and I have a passion for whiskey, and I want to share that passion with you. And I'm going to start by saying that I don't intend to edit these videos. I want to keep them all one piece, so maybe throw the odd picture in between somewhere, but I don't want to cut and paste and do that sort of thing. So you maybe find that I go on a bit sometimes, and just forgive me that. We'll move on. And we're going to start for probably the first few episodes. I want to focus the first few episodes on Bushmills whiskey. And I'm doing that for a few reasons. First reason, the most particular reason to me, is because Bushmills whiskey comes from the county in Northern Ireland where I'm at here, where I was born, raised, and currently live in County Antrim. And I just felt like, stick to what you know, stick to somewhere that sort of thing. It's got a personal thing to me, and I'll explain I want to explain, not just review the whiskey, but I want to go through a few terminologies that comes with whiskey as we go along, and hopefully you'll find this informative. And as I say yet again, thank you for joining in. Okay, this is Bushmills standard white label whiskey, as basic as it comes pretty much. It's what you would call a budget Irish blend. Excuse me, they fit in there among Jameson's, Tullamore Dew, Paddy, Powers Gold Label, that sort of thing. That's what it is. It's around that same level. And what I'm going to do straight away is pour myself a dram, give it a minute to settle in the glass, because generally I think, whether you're new to whiskey or whether you've been drinking whiskey for a while and you're just looking a little more information, I would recommend you always give your whiskey a while to settle in the glass. So we'll let that sit there for a moment, and I'll talk to you a little more about Bushmills as a distillery. It is right up in the north coast of County Antrim, up in a village called Bushmills, funnily enough, and lovely distillery, very quaint, very old. Not as old as it would claim to be, in that the bottle would claim that Bushmills distillery is 1608. They're this embossed in all their bottles. Certainly the first license was issued to distill whiskey in 1608, but the distillery itself didn't actually start producing whiskey until the late 1700s. And there were other distilleries certainly distilling whiskey prior to that, not necessarily in Ireland. Is it the oldest Irish distillery? There's probably those that would debate that as well, but we're not going to get into the age debate right now. It's not particular in what we're talking about here. So the whiskey itself, labels, as I say, it says 1608. That would claim to be a very, very old whiskey. Don't always believe what you read on a label of a bottle of whiskey. If it says, for example, natural coloured, that you can take as the truth, as gospel. If it says it's non-chill filtered, and I'll explain what these mean in later reviews, later videos. Certain things you can take on board. There's certain comments, it says on here, smooth and mellow. That means pretty much nothing. Really, it's to say something smooth and mellow doesn't really hold much water, but it's what they've stuck with. And to look at this, you will find that it doesn't add anything. There's nothing really here that states what's going on in this bottle. Really, all it says that you should really, it's Irish whiskey. That much we know is true. it's blended, that much we know is true, and triple distilled, which yet again, I mean, where that comes into it, we would need to look deeper. Colour wise, you'll find whiskey people discussing the colour of whiskey, because they add caramel colour, E150A, to keep this colour consistent for consistency purposes through each batch of this. And I'm going to, at this point then, I'll explain what a blended whiskey is, because this is blended. If you don't know what blended whiskey is, take for example your car. Your car will be made by a specific manufacturer. Their name badge will be on the bonnet of the car, or the hood, or wherever, wherever you're at in the world. And that states that that's the manufacturer of that car. But the tyres were sourced from elsewhere. The electrical work was most likely sourced from elsewhere. Your sat nav, etc. Your carpets, your seat coverings, probably sourced from elsewhere. All these things go together to make that car. And that company puts it out saying, this is our car. Same can be said for a whiskey. This is a blended whiskey. There'll be single malt in it, which I will explain at a later time. There will be single grain whiskey in it, which yet again I will explain another time, and probably single pot still, Irish single pot still. And these will all be sourced from different distilleries. Some of it obviously is from Bushmills itself. Probably the biggest portion of it is from Bushmills itself, but it will be sourced to make this, and somewhere in the Bushmills distillery will be a cabinet under lock and key with a flavour profile which says this is what Bushmills White Label tastes like. And each time they make it, they will make it the same, so as they can put it out in high quantities. Now, next thing we need to know is this is 40% volume, and it is. And we'll actually get into the whiskey itself. What I mean by 40% volume, well, it's 40% ABV, alcohol by volume. You will also hear people discuss proof. Whiskey in itself, to be whiskey, cannot be any lower than 40% volume ABV, which, if you hear people talking about proof, will be 80 proof. So your half of your proof, your proof and your volume are always, so if it's 100 proof, then it's 50 volume. If it's, it's that simple. I can't do maths on the spot, and that wasn't difficult. This, as it says, 40% is the lowest level a whiskey can be. Below that, it's not whiskey anymore. So this, and as you can see, there hasn't been an awful lot of colour added to this. This is a Irish blended whiskey, as simple as it comes, and I don't know if you can pick that up, but there's a bit of grit on it. It's been in a barrel. It's had to have been. The whiskies in this are non-aged. There's no age statement on the label, which age statements again I will explain at a later date. The whiskey itself has to have been, each individual part has to have been in a barrel for at least 3 years, otherwise it cannot be considered whiskey. So you know that there's a bit of something in it. So we're going to go into the nose, and I've sort of a rough idea what to expect, because I've had Bushmills before. That wasn't the first dram to come out of this bottle. There's been a lot out of it, mind you, but we'll go in anyway on the nose. And basically what the nose is, if you're new to whiskey, is basically the smell. It's what you're picking up on the nose. And yep, it was exactly what I expected. It's fresh, it's fruity. There's not a lot of bite. There's not a lot, the alcohol, there's no real alcohol burn there. So it's quite pleasant on the nose for that purpose, that you don't have, you're not struggling to get it in there. You can cope with it very easily. It's like fruit, sweets almost. I'm trying to think. candied fruit. And then after a while, when it sits, when you start to agitate the glass, then that burn will start to come a bit, but not an awful lot. So the nose itself, as I say, is quite fresh. Not a lot going on it. So I'm going to go to the palate and start, and I have a few ideas of where this might go, and if it does, then I'll be straight back to you on it. Yep, fairness, it's better than I remember. I haven't had it for a while, and I found it quite flat. It's still quite flat. The palate doesn't necessarily fulfill what the nose tells you the whiskey's going to do, and this is something that I've found with Bushmills whiskey, is that the nose has got life, it's got a certain vibrance, and then the palate just tends to drop off very, very quickly, and the finish, which comes after the palate, the bit at the back, is flat. It's gone. It doesn't linger at all. And if memory or experience has taught me anything, it's that it already is starting to go flat again. It's going flatter again after now that my palate's got used to it already. So what I'm going to do is experience yet again has taught me that this is the good old fashioned. If you do watch whiskey reviewers, I recommend, there's a lot out there, and I'll name drop them as we go along, but the first one I'm going to mention is Ralphie.com, and this is a Ralphie.com measuring device. Find it in any kitchen drawer. It's a spoon, obviously, and very, very little. I mean, we're literally talking about a drop of water to add to that, and that drop, I'll maybe give it 2, and that drop will change that whiskey, because in the 3 years that the parts of this whiskey or whatever have sat in the barrel, they've picked up oils, they've gathered, and the whiskey does tend to contract and pull in a bit, and all the water does is you're not thinning the whiskey that much. All you're doing is breaking up the oil particles to give it more, to release the scents, release the flavour, and straight away that nose comes back and the fresh fruit is there again, and it's like almost strawberries, and it's like a fruit salad, almost a fruit salad sweet. I don't know if you had fruit salad sweets, chewy sweets. And immediately the palate starts to become more what the nose is telling you the palate is, or what the palate should be. And the finish, as a result, gets longer as well, because just that breaking up gives it a bit more grip. Now, it's still not great. I actually find Bushmills whiskey a little hit and miss, I'll be totally honest with you, and it upsets me slightly, because to a certain extent we would almost look at it, I would always look at it as it's our whiskey, it's from the north of Ireland, it's an old whiskey, it's something that, but this is dirt cheap, this is budget, and as much as you know, if you're looking quality, you want to go higher than this, and there's better in the Bushmills range. As I say, they can be hit and miss, and I find the white label a bit of a miss, to be honest with you. It's just a bit too thin for my palate. There's not enough going on it. Now, as I said, I will be moving through the core range of Bushmills. I said they are hit and miss to me, so we'll find there's better ones out there. This is number 1. This is my review number 1. I'm not going to in my reviews give scores to these whisky. Not at the moment. I haven't found the necessity to score it out of anything, because really it'll mean something to one person and not necessarily something to somebody else. But what I will say is, in this whisky you will find fresh fruit, you'll find a bitterness. I'm getting a slight bitterness in the finish. For all the finish there is, the finish is still, even with the drop of water in it, the finish is still a bit weak. There's not an awful lot going on. But if you want the cheap whiskey, give it a go, certainly. It's better than I remember. I haven't had it in a while, and I'm actually doing this review as we speak. I haven't made notes again because I want these to be open and honest. It is better than I remember, but it's still a bit wishy-washy. There's not a lot going on. Yeah, disappears quite quickly. But it's inexpensive and it's approachable. It doesn't fight you. So if you want a nice, easy going, something that's not too complex, give it a go. If you haven't tried it before, why not? I'm going to call this an end to this first video and my first review. And I would like to thank you all for joining in. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Spread the word. And for now, I'm going to say goodbye and your good health. Cheers. Hey, thanks for watching my video. Please click and subscribe to be notified of further content.